My goodness, that was so funny. Like, so funny. The camera, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, they say, right? Sometimes. And anything that can go right will go right, but you can switch it around in a second. Well, Susan Bratton in California thought it was 3 p.m. Pacific time. Happens a lot, right? So I'm on here yip yapping to you guys, thinking she's always on. Like, she knows how to do this. This woman's going to be here any second, right? But what happened is she was thinking 3 p.m. her time. So I come back on and I love life. This is so good. And the phone and the camera, it fell on me and it crashed into my head and it made it go live. And I was thinking, that is the funniest thing. Oh, she made it.
I made
Yeah.
it. That's how it goes, that Eastern versus Western time. I'm here now. I'm so sorry about that, Sandy.
But no, you know what's really funny?
What?
This fell on my head.
Oh,
While I was waiting for you, something went weird and it fell on my head. Is that funny?
oh, are you okay?
Yeah.
Good.
But that's life, right? I mean, you just got to go with it, right?
It
I'm
is.
glad
So
that you were able to come on and switch at the last minute. So I was giving a little bit more about you
yeah.
before, but the
Oh,
biggest topic I want to tell them about is you said, don't read my bio. Let's just get right into it, right? They want to know about these subjects. We only got 30 minutes.
yeah.
And when I put up, just so you know, ageless sexuality, even at the time you weren't here, I got bombarded with questions. So,
Good. Okay, great. Super. Yeah, what
but
I
we want
wanted
to
to
get
do.
in your topics because you were going over it, and we want to dive into them because this is something, especially for this group. Not that men and women aren't listening, but it's really for women 35 and above. That's
Yeah,
this age group.
yeah. Good. Great. Well, I was thinking about ageless sexuality. That's what you wanted to talk about. And what advice that I would give to women. What are the things that we think versus what I've learned actually can help women continue to have a good sex life from middle age and beyond, actually ageless sexuality. And one of them is that often we think that our libido declines because of hormone changes. Like, oh my God, I don't want sex as much as I used to. It's my hormones. And often, a lot of the things that happen to us are not hormonally related. They're actually related to a loss of blood flow in our body. We have this thing in our body called nitric oxide that moves our blood around. Last week I was in Belize and I fainted because I had low low blood volume. What happened was I got dehydrated and I didn't have enough blood for both my heart and my brain, and I fainted because I was dehydrated. And you only have about 5 liters of blood in your body, and your vascular system is a
Mm.
muscle system, and it squeezes the blood where it needs to go to your muscles when you're working out, to your heart when you're running and working out, to your brain when you're doing
Mm.
work, to your belly when you're digesting, and to your pelvic bowl when you're having sex, when you're getting aroused. And
Oof.
the vagina it doesn't have glands that lubricate it. It has antibacterial glands called the Bartholin's glands, but the vagina itself, it can get really dry as you age.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the reason it gets dry isn't hormones. Your tissue will thin in your vagina because of a loss of estrogen, but the lubrication comes from your blood flowing to your pelvic bowl. And so a lot of women, and even though how wet you are is not necessarily correlated to how turned on you are, you could be super turned on and want to have sex, but be dry. And I know a
Hold it,
lot of women
hold it, hold
have
it,
found
because
that.
men need to hear that, because a lot of times they think it completely, if you're not wet,
Yeah.
you don't even care.
Right. And we don't have, it's kind of like their erection. They don't have a lot of control over it. They might not be able to get erect if they're tired, or if their testosterone is low, or if they're low in nitric oxide. It's the same for us women. We can't get lubricated unless we have enough blood flow to our pelvis. And by the time we're 50, we have half the ability to produce nitric oxide we did when we were 20. So it's really easy to get wet when you're 20 and a lot harder to get wet when you're 50. And so nitric oxide is actually the thing, not hormones, that helps you get blood flow to your pelvis. It helps the blood plasma, the blood plasma seeps through, the liquid from the plasma seeps through the layers of the vagina, the vaginal mucosa. It's mucosal. It's like the inside of our mouth, and it's wet from blood flow. And so if you have a nitric oxide dysregulation, then you're not going to get as wet as you used to. And then if you don't have enough blood flow to your genital system, you end up also not having the same satisfaction, orgasmic satisfaction. Your orgasm sensation starts to diminish. So you might notice as you age that it gets harder and harder to achieve an orgasm. Like you're trying harder, it may not feel as good as it used to. And that's from all the erectile tissue in our vulva, in our whole genital system, not getting the blood flow it needs to expand, to get big. Essentially, we're flaccid, and then we have blood flow when we're aroused. And when that blood flows in, it plumps everything up. But if it's, I mean, this is a funny thing, but if you've ever looked at your outer labia, essentially on the openings to your vaginal area, on the outside, underneath the pubic hair, as you age, it starts to look a little bit like scrotum. It starts to get a little saggy. And that's the loss of blood flow to the vulva. And the way to reverse that is by supplementing with a nitric oxide supplement, by eating leafy green vegetables, and beetroot. Beets are super good for you. So dill, cabbage, romaine, arugula, the lettuces, all the greens, kale, Swiss chard, spinach. The greens have something called nitrates in them. And in your tongue, you have these little crypts, these little spaces where there's bacteria that live, that their sole purpose is to convert the nitrates to nitrites. And then when you swallow, when you've chewed and swallowed, the nitrites turn to nitric oxide from your stomach acid. It's this process. And if you use an antibacterial mouthwash, you ruin those little bacteria and you don't make nitric oxide. If you use a proton pump inhibitor or an acid blocker, you don't have the stomach, or you just have low stomach acid. You lose the ability to convert from nitrates to nitric oxide. So then your blood system, which only has about 5 liters of blood, can't get the blood to your pelvis. You get dry, sex is painful, you lack lubrication, your sensation diminishes, sex doesn't feel as good, and just generally, it's not as satisfying. So many people think, oh, it's my hormones. And I'm like, it's actually your nitric oxide. And that's why I created Flow, which is the nitric oxide product that I created, because I discovered this and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get a nitric oxide supplement. And then I looked for one that was organic, because I wanted it made out of real fruit and vegetables, not something that was just made in a vat in China from corn syrup, which is how most of nitric oxide supplements are made. I talked to a food scientist, a chemist, and I said, if the supplement is made from corn syrup, corn liquor that's fermented, and the corn's been sprayed with pesticides. Does the fermentation and production process get rid of the pesticides? And he said it does not. The pesticides stay in the product. They are chemical molecules. It's been changed and they stay with it. And I was like, okay, I need to make an organic nitric oxide supplement from real ingredients. And you know what's so interesting is that there's two amino acids that help us make nitric oxide. One of them is arginine and the other is citrulline. And if you look at all the studies on nitric oxide supplementation, if you're over 40, your citrulline pathway is a better pathway for making nitric oxide. Young bodybuilders often take arginine, but people with herpes virus, they don't like to take arginine because then they also have to take lysine because it makes their herpes break out.
Yeah.
So I wanted to use citrulline, and citrulline comes from watermelon. The watermelon's Latin name is Citrullus vulgaris. And this is actually a product that's made from watermelon rind, not the fruit, but the actual rind. Organic watermelon rind is pulverized and powdered, and you're actually taking watermelon rind and spinach, and then the tannin from pine bark, because pine bark tannins actually help with blood flow. Tannins are like bitters. Like bitters are good for your liver. And then there's acerola cherries for vitamin C, which actually helps with absorption. So a lot of women start taking this and they're like, oh my God, within days, I was wet again. Wet in a way that I didn't think I'd ever be again. And they give it to their men. They give it to their male-bodied partners. And often a guy who's been taking Viagra to get an erection, he can take much less Viagra. The standard Viagra dose is 60 milligrams. Often he can go down to 10 or 20 milligrams because he's topped up his own nitric oxide stores. So by the time we're 50, we have half the nitric oxide production capacity we did when we're 20. And this kind of tops up our tank. So whether you get your nitric oxide from beets and leafy green vegetables or a supplement or both, it helps with feeling good orgasmic potential and capacity, and it helps with lubrication. So it's such a simple thing, but it's not common knowledge. I have a special URL for you to post. It's B-U-Y, flow, F-L-O-W, now, N-O-W. And that's where you can get the best discount and shipping from any place you can buy my Flow supplement. And there's a money back guarantee. So if any of your fans and followers want to try Flow and take it with their partners, I recommend, in the perfect world, take 2 capsules at night. If not, take them whenever you remember. That's my advice. And take them before sex, 20 minutes before sex, because another thing that's very interesting is that, you know, Sandy, you and I we've talked a lot on your show about orgasm and about our female orgasmic capacity and the different kinds of orgasms every woman can have. And one of the kinds of orgasms, I know, there's so many we can have, and one of them is female ejaculation, female ejaculatory orgasms. All women have the ability to release what I like to call our divine nectar, our feminine waters. They're not urine. They are essentially prostatic fluid that recruits down from the blood plasma into our urethral canal. And when we have a contraction, we emit this fluid. And that fluid is supported by taking Flow, by taking a nitric oxide supplement, so that if you want to have these kinds of divine orgasmic experiences, taking a nitric oxide supplement helps with the squirting part of the orgasm, as well as just general orgasmic pleasure. So that's number one of the 3 things that I wanted to talk about with regard to ageless sexuality.
It's such an easy fix. It's so, honestly, I never even thought about it. Maybe that's why I've been craving beets lately.
Yeah, I've been roasting beets at least once a week. I roast 3 big beets and then serve them for a few meals so that I'm getting my beetroots in, because I was pretty good with leafy greens. I mean, I pretty much have a salad for lunch, and then I do a a protein and a couple of vegetables for dinner, and so I've just been adding the beets in. And what I like to do is I just cut them raw and I chop them into a dice, and then I put them in a heavy pan with a little bit of avocado oil and water and cover it. And I put in a couple of whole allspice, those little round black balls that look like big pieces of peppercorn. Beets taste delicious with allspice. So then I have some for dinner and I have some for a few leftovers. I throw them in my salads as well, those roasted beets, and they are so good.
Oh, I'm going to do that. Yeah, because I, for a while, didn't like beets. And now, if only in a certain way, I enjoy roasted. But that sounds intriguing. All right, what's number 2?
So number 2 is what I like to call orgasmic cross-training. And if you want ageless sexuality, it's not necessary. I don't like to say use it or lose it, because you can always get it back. But the longer you wait, the harder it is. Why push a giant rock up a steep hill when you could, flick a pebble across a slippery floor? So the orgasmic cross training, that was kind of like flicking a bean. Orgasmic cross training is the notion that there are many different kinds of sex toys out there. And now sexual technology has gone beyond vibrators. And many women have maybe one vibrator that they use every once in a while. And what I like to tell women is there are these different types of vibrators. And if you have them all and you use them all, you're actually training your body to have orgasms from different types of stimulus. And then the next thing women say, and I'm going to get into what they are. The next thing women say is, yeah, but if I use a vibrator, doesn't it make it hard for me to have an orgasm with a partner? And then don't I become reliant on the toy? And I say, no, you don't. Actually, the more orgasms you have, the easier it is for you to achieve orgasms, whether it's with partnered play or with toy play. The second thing is that I encourage women to incorporate toys into their partnered play, because the orgasms that you have from hands, from fingers, from penises are fantastic and different than the orgasms that you have from toys and different types of toys. So the more kinds of stimulation that you have, the easier it is to have satisfaction across all of those possibilities and modalities, if you will. And the more that we as women take the stigma away from using toys during sex, and when our partners begin to understand that they're doing everything right and this is a plus up, rather than this is something you're doing to compensate for them not doing a good job. And you may have to say that to them a couple times and have them have the experience of you having orgasms with them, with toys and without toys. But overall, what you're doing is you're instead of this fixed pie mentality where there's this pie and it's sex, and if I have it with a toy, then it takes away from my partner and he doesn't get a piece of the pie. That's not true. What you're doing is you're expanding the pie so that you're having more kinds of orgasms with your partner. Orgasms they create and the orgasms you create with them with toys. And toys don't reduce your ability to have orgasms or make you desensitized to orgasms. But if you use them and they're too strong, you do have a refractory period where you have to allow your body to recover from the stimulation, and then it can have orgasms again. But what I say is learn how to have orgasms from the lightest of touch and the most fine stimulation, well as from the heavier stimulation of sex toys, so that you're able to have orgasms from a range of stimulation. That's what you want to do, is you want to expand that pie. So
I love that. You know what? And you don't think of that because there's so many things that you're saying that, you know how you think like they're old wives' tales that you've heard, and you're debunking most of them. But yet it makes common sense, because I'm thinking of everything I teach with the mindset and the body is the same thing. You're just little bit by little bit, you're retraining it to become used to it, and it becomes a habit. It just makes sense.
It does. Good. I'm glad it's making sense, because
I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I didn't think of it. And you're explaining it in a way that I'm like, everyone's probably going to want to keep rewinding this, because it does make logical sense. And on top of it, what I love the most, and people were writing in before, is you're so comfortable in your own sexuality, and you're so comfortable in talking about it, that you make everyone around you feel like it's okay. And what they want to know is, have you always been this way? Were you always comfortable talking about sexuality and your own sexuality?
No, this is my second career that I've been doing for the last 15 years. It wasn't until my mid-40s that I even had an orgasm from intercourse and realized that it's just a learned skill. Orgasms are learned skills. You're not a woman who can or can't have orgasms. You're just a woman who maybe hasn't had them yet, or hasn't had certain kinds yet. And that's why I like this notion of orgasmic cross-training, because it begins to get a woman thinking, oh, okay, so if I have this one way of achieving climax, maybe I can have more than one way. And so that, I just like I got good at having all different kinds of orgasms, I taught myself how, and I learned with my husband. We learned together. As a matter of fact, I was keynoting at a health conference this weekend, and my keynote was taking people through what I call creating your sex life bucket list. What are the things that you want? What are the experiences that you want to have in the bedroom? And for some women, it's, I'd like to have an orgasm from intercourse without having to use a vibrator, or without having to put my finger directly on my clitoris. I'd like to just come from being penetrated. And that's just a learned skill. Some women a lot of women were very interested in female ejaculation. They wanted to have the experience of releasing their feminine fluids. And one woman came up to me with her husband, and he was mortified, because she said, well, I've never had an orgasm from intercourse. And you've really encouraged me to want to work with my husband to learn how. And her husband's just standing there like, oh my God, I can't believe we're standing here. Because guys, they take it as like like they did something wrong. And no, you just haven't learned how yet. You just have to learn how. Yeah. And so in the orgasmic cross training, one of the reasons I like to talk about that and talk about using toys is that if you think about it, there's vibrators. Some of them are buzzy, light, fast. Some of them are rumbly, like a magic wand. It's lower and deeper and stronger. Then there's things like air stimulators. That's the womanizer, right? They do like a sucking and blowing type of a thing. Those are really good. They're good, but they're only focused on the tip of your clitoris. And what I like to do is encourage women to do what I call activating the whole vulva. So if you can get very light stimulation on your clitoris, if you can get enough stimulation to give yourself a clitoral erection where the shaft actually gets hard and pops so that you can feel the clitoris better, when you like to and can have orgasms from the top, the hood being stroked, the inner labia, the edges of the inner labia, the outer labia, the entrance to the vagina, which is called the and inside the vagina, the G spot, which is at the top of the vaginal canal, deeper in what they would call an A spot, or the anterior fornix, or the cervical orgasm. Our vagina is completely surrounded by erectile tissue. It's not just the tip of the clitoris that's orgasmic, it's all of this tissue. And so for us to have orgasms from intercourse, we need to activate all of the erectile tissue through massage, vibration, stimulation, manual pleasuring, oral pleasuring. And that's why though I like things that target the tip of the clitoris, like the air stimulator, the reason for cross training is so that you're activating all the tissues. So another type of vibrator that I like, it's a vibrator that is an internal vibrator, something that could be a pulsator, a thruster, something that stimulates the internal G spot. So not just thinking about the outside, but also activating yourself internally is very important. And then another kind of vibrator is a G-spot, or another kind of toy is a G-spot wand that can go inside and kind of stroke the top of the vaginal canal. One of my very favorite toys is, it's called, there's two sizes. There's a smaller size and a larger size, and it's called the Miss Bi or the Lady Bi. And that's like a rabbit. It has an outer and an inner vibrator, so that there's essentially two motors, so that you're getting the external pleasuring, but you're also activating yourself internally. And then there's another kind of a vibrator that's or a sex toy, a woman's sex toy, I would say, that's called it's kind of like a liquor. The Volta is a good example of that from Fun Factory. And so there are many different types of toys that can activate all of that erectile tissue. So you take flow and you get the flow. Then you get blood flow, so that you go from small and flaccid to plump and engorged. All that tissue gets stimulated, and it sends more signals of pleasure to your brain, and you're activating all the parts of your vulva. So I think together, the cross-training with the nitric oxide supplementation just generally expand your orgasmic capacity and your orgasmic pleasure. And they work really well. They're very synergistic. They're a good 1-2 punch for punching up your sex life.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm getting emails, and I'm like, it was supposed to be a 30-minute show. We can't dive into this. But is there anything before we go that you can sneak in there, Susan, before we go and wrap it up? Because we're just going to have to catch up with you another time. I can't get through them.
Yes. I want to give you a book called ArousalSecrets.com. It's at ArousalSecrets.com. And it's a book that explains the difference between libido, desire, and arousal, how to increase your arousal, how to improve your libido, and how to feel desirable and to have desire. I go through all the different parts of our genital structures and tell you things similar to the things I've told you today that will help you essentially cross the chasm, close the orgasm gap between where you are and your orgasmic potential. So that's at ArousalSecrets.com.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because how can they find you and reach you? Because I know they're going to want to reach out and they're going to want to find some of your products. Tell them everywhere they can find you.
Sure. Well, if you go to ArousalSecrets.com, you'll be on my mailing list. And then if you get emails from me, you'll be able to reply to any email and ask me any personal question you want. They come right into my inbox, and I reply to everyone. So, and I only know as much as I know because everybody asks me questions, and I've heard so many things and been asked so many questions. So that's why a lot of people are hard to get a hold of. They're famous and they're like out there. And I'm the kind of person who's like here for everyone, because you are who made me good at what I do. And so I love to answer questions. So that's the best way to do it, is just go to sign up, get that video and that free ebook from me that helps you have a better sex life, and then reply to any email I send you, and I'll answer your questions.
Yeah. Well, before we go, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and talking about ageless sexuality, because you are allowing everyone out there to feel more comfortable to talk about it and ask for what they want. And I really am so appreciative of you putting that out in the world. I cannot tell you how many of my friends said, wait a minute, you haven't had somebody live. I've had, guests on recorded. I go, no, I haven't. But this woman is such a dynamo, how she presents it and how you make us feel good about our sexuality. And also how that no matter where you are on the spectrum, there is hope. Even if you have sadness, like you're never too old. And I think that's really, really important. And some of these things, I mean, they're easy peasy. We can do it right away,
I know. It's very few times I tell you, all you need is a pill, all you need is a supplement and a sex toy, and you're going to have great orgasm. I mean, hey, that's not so bad. And I can also tell you that at 60 years old, I'm having the best sex of my life. So it's absolutely possible for your sex to get better and better and better as you age. I'm a big believer in ageless sexuality.
Woo-hoo! Well, hey, I got something to say, people. She had something to say. And please do not worry if you missed the beginning of the episode. I know we're doing it special. It was really nice to do it on Tuesday because I will be away at a conference on Thursday. But I'm going to record this and post it on every social media site. So don't worry. It'll be on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. I know you're going to want to spread this word. It could help so many people. Thank you so much for being on. And thank you so much for the last minute changing your conference call. I really appreciate it.
Thing. I apologize. It happens, but thank you for your graciousness. And thanks for having me. Okay.
Till next time.
Bye.
Toodles.
Toodles. Bye-bye.